Share it around. One of the things we do on our daily stand-up every day is look at who's returning the best. So we don't have to just keep it pigeonholed to all the money's going into Indeed. We'll funnel it at a percentage depending on who's returning the best. We can normally where that will change. But
you guys ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Hey everybody, Jay here with Wise Hire. Super excited today. With us, you see here on the screen, we've got Jason Abrams. We're going to get you guys to tell a little bit about yourselves. Everybody say hi. Scott also.
Hey.
So today I'm really excited, and I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves. But man, this is a very relevant topic, I think. Some of the stuff that Jason, you've talked about with regards to millennials, that's why we're really here, makes a case for further down the road, but I'm seeing it every day right now, today as well. So you guys really need to pay attention to this if you're looking to grow your team. This is a really, really crucial topic. And again, that topic is everything to do with millennials, why they're important today, why they're going to be way super important by 2020, crazy important. That's not even really that forward of thinking kind of person. You know, if you're not looking down the road just several years, then pull over. How you hire them, what are some of the best practices, what makes them different, what makes them tick differently, and so on and so forth. So hiring, millennials, talking with Jason Abrams. Jason, why don't you go ahead and give a little bit of your background? I mean, I'm very well familiar with the Scoring the Deal HGTV show. There's awesome stuff in there. A little bit about the background of why I tapped you from your most recent talk about millennials over there. Just tell them a little bit more about that.
Well, I'm thrilled that you mentioned Scoring the Deal. You watched it, and my mom watched it. That makes a successful series, of course. With the rest of the HGTV family that we were looking for. But yeah, I owned a firm that represented professional athletes and entertainers nationwide, and we quickly grew to be the largest provider in the world of relocation services for them. During our run, we did over 800 NFL players, and it went on from there. It was a great run. It was fantastic. We still have a division that does it, diversify.
That's like half, right?
Well, there's 1,655, give or take, and in any one given year. But you got to remember, they're coming in and out so fast. The problem is you reinvent every 3 to 4 years because everybody's brand new every year. And so you fight over draft picks. So in 2014, we represented 29% of the first round. And you look up and say, well, we're great, we've arrived. But then you realize that next year, half those guys were busts anyway, and you're on to the next. So if you think it's hard to go find for sale by owners, try finding professional athletes.
That's awesome, though. That's just basically about half of the NFL relocations we're looking for you.
Yeah, give or take between us.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was great. And then we started diversifying more towards the more conventional buyer and seller in 2013. And we run a smaller team now. Did about 420 transactions last year, call it 120 million in sales. What makes us a little unique on that, I call it small because I really think we're at the infant stage of it. We're running an expansion model. So we're running real estate teams in Michigan, in Portland, and in Phoenix. So there's a lot of guys running big teams, but there's few of them that have decided to do it without borders. And I really think we can go worldwide now, which pairs up really nicely with the idea that I think millennials are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And with us also, Scott. Scott, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself in viral marketing? These guys have been helping us. They're fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And nice being here with you, Jay and Jason. So Scott with Viral Marketing, we are going to be, we help you do video marketing, stay in touch with all your sphere audience, past clients, anyone that you're trying to add value to. So I'm here to help. We do a lot of things with Facebook, webinars, and I'm just glad to be a part of it and listen to you guys go off about millennials and hiring. So I'm excited to be here too.
I'm grateful for it because I think, if I know something about one thing, that's probably pretty lucky. And these guys at Viral are able to help us figure out all the other stuff as far as how to do it, where to do it, and what to do, because I can flip a light switch, like I said. So,
well, full disclosure, Viral does most of it for us. It's difficult. Anytime you get together with industry leaders within real estate, you all then sit around and talk about who you're in business with. And most of the time it gets back to Viral. They're top notch at what they do.
Thanks, guys. Love it. All right, let's rock and roll. Let's get into this.
You got it. So look, we're talking about millennials. Jason, I'm going to pick the hell out of your brain for the next hour or a little less. So first question, millennials. Why do we even talk about millennials? Why are they different than anybody else, any other age demographic or anything like that?
Well, because they're next, right? And because they're now. I mean, the reality of it is when you make hires, you get to decide if you're going to hire emerging talent or proven talent or somewhere in the middle. And both of those things are going to have benefits and drawbacks. If all you hire is proven talent, when I say proven, I mean this is people that are going to have the right behavior and have done the exact job you're looking for well somewhere else. Now, the risk of being wrong on that hire goes down dramatically. They not only did they have track record and behavior, but they proved it. That's an expensive hire, though. They're going to be top dollar. That's just what it's going to be. If you hire emerging talent, I like to say if you could hire Jason Abrams before he knows he's Jason Abrams, you're able to get that guy really relatively cheaply. Not only that, but you're able to mentor them and you're able to not only build a business relationship, but then help somebody live a big life. And the reality of it is I've looked at investments all over the world, and our platform is such that we go all over the world. And I haven't found another one, be it stocks, bonds, preferred stock, angel dollars, early investor, you name it. The single greatest investment that anybody can make is the right person at the right time in their life when the job you have to do matches their behavior and is the next logical step in their life. And the truth of it is that when you can find them when they're young, you can get that person cheap. I'm a Jewish guy. I like this idea.
No, I love the idea. I mean, I've got some ideas I'll share here in a second, but you first. How do you identify? I mean, the reason we have so many of our clients at WiseHire come to us saying, help us find great talent, and they go, I want that proven stud, or the lady that's been crushing it. And they're looking at numbers from broker metrics and they're saying, I need this individual. And the problems we tell them there are, well, first off, they're going to be expensive. Second, it's a very small pool. With 80 to 90% turnover within a 2-year period of coming into the industry, if they're looking for a job, statistically, the odds are they're in that 80 or 90% that aren't likely to be there in 2 years. If they're crushing it, they're probably happy where they are, and it's a very small benefit for them to move somewhere else, or at least a number of fields. So we're pushing them all the time. Go younger, go newer, go less proven. How do you find out if without that background and pedigree, how do you know that's the person that's going to be the right fit for you?
I think that one of the things that WiseHire did that was so smart was they started incorporating personality assessments along with the hires that we're getting. So let's talk about people in terms of like rubber bands for a second. I believe that everybody can stretch, just like a rubber band can. But the longer you stay stretched and the tighter you're stretched, the more of a tendency you have to snap. And in our personal lives, we can all stretch our behaviors. The problem is when you stretch yours to fit a role that's not a fit for your natural behavior, it starts to show up in other places in your life. It shows up as fatigue. It shows up with being short with the people that love you most. It shows up with you looking at your life and asking how quickly can you get through it as opposed to how much can you enjoy it. And we go all into scarcity and very little abundance. Yeah. So you look up and say, well, then why do people force themselves to stretch all the time? And the truth is because most of people are in jobs that are not a natural fit for their behaviors. What they do is they find something that's available and then they match their personality to whatever's open. And I think that that's the opposite of a consultative approach to hiring or recruiting and simply trying to fill your own need. And I think the difference is if you look at recruiting consultatively, you say, well, then this is about me fulfilling their needs. Let me figure out what their needs are and what their personality is, and then look at my organization and say, do I have a fit? If I don't, I don't. But if I do, awesome things happen. That's the difference between filling a role and building a business.
Well, I think it's foresight and it's an elevated thought process that unfortunately a lot of hiring people don't have. They put the job first and they say, now I need you to conform to the job. So, I mean, we saw my first book called What's Your Genius, and it was summing up a 7-year study. We looked at 197,000 people around the world in 23 countries, and we were looking for what correlated with performance from a personality standpoint, from a DISC and a values profile. Only 2 things. And it's just supporting exactly what you said from a big, empirical scientific point of view. Self-awareness and authenticity. They knew what their strengths and weaknesses were. They weren't unaware of them. They knew them. I mean, cold, like they had a laminated bulleted list in their back pocket, I am bop, 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 and I suck at bop, 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 bop. Didn't even hesitate. But more than that, they were authentic. They said, I've got a job where my strengths are really maximized and my success depends very little on what I suck at. Therefore, in a DISC model, I don't adapt. I mean, I adapt almost none. I always used to teach the adaptation and an analogy of you got to hire a guy to stock shelves at a store. And ideally he's 6'2" to reach the very top shelf. You hire a guy that's 6 feet. He's like, yeah, I can stand on my tippy toes and I can reach it, no problem. The same performance happens. He's nowhere near as stable. He's nowhere near as proficient and comfortable. It's a little bit riskier. And at the end of the day, he's dead tired. His legs are killing him, as opposed to if you got somebody that's naturally able to do that, like the rubber band analogy. So
I think that behavior and natural ability is a big part of it. And we look at organizations and all the ones that I'm involved in, they need all different types of personalities and behaviors. And the truth is, if we only went out and hired guys like me that are decent salespeople and happen to be amazing looking, nothing would get done on the paperwork side, Jay. I mean, it would be an absolute nightmare. So I think there's two issues here. Number one is that oftentimes business owners start looking for talent and hiring when they're at their greatest point of pain. And if you're drowning and someone throws you a life server, the last thing you do is compete the color.
Yep.
No one grabs that and says, I hate orange. You just grab it and you throw it on. And if you're always hiring in a point of pain, everything looks like relief to you. That's a massive problem. So when I say, well, let's take a consultative approach to hiring and recruiting, it's let's do it every day. Let's treat it like it's the most important part of our business. Let's talk to people every day, because the truth is you either have the single greatest people in the world working for you or they're still out there, in which case you owe it to yourself as the owner of the business to look every day. That's the only way to find opportunity, and it's the only way to top grade the talent that you have. What you'll notice is when somebody leaves your organization, the only time it matters is if you're not talking to 3 people who might be as good, if not better than them. And the best test for that I've ever found is when you say to yourself, let's look at everyone in my company. Would I hire every single one of them as enthusiastically today as the day I hired them? And if there's anyone out there that can say yes, call me, because I need to be in business with you immediately.
You're referencing Brad Smart, it sounds like. Did you actually using top grading mentality?
I mean, yeah, I think if you're not top grading always, then you're downgrading. And if the bottom 20% isn't on their way out the door, then I don't know what business you have 3 years from now. I know what it looks like today. But that's the thing. Have you noticed when you look at companies that either have amazing growth or companies that end up are stagnant, during this time, they all look the same. It's really difficult to know which ones are going to go. It's the ones that are putting duplicatable systems and models and people in place that are territory takers. But you don't know until they start taking that territory. And if you wait too long and you look up, you got a real problem.
If you haven't read Top Grading, by the way, Smart Brothers, read it. Everybody listening and here and now and later on in the recording, great book. I think it's really intriguing to me that you bring that up, Jason, because there's a distinct difference in the way that you're approaching hiring than unfortunately a lot of people do. You're thinking about it more like an actual corporation, like an established company does. And so many times brokers and even team leaders who have kind of emulated a broker model just say, hey, warm body, meat stick, sit there, do your thing. 9 out of 10 of you aren't going to be here in 2 years, pay your desk fees. I don't care. You just throw the spaghetti on the wall and some will stick. You're approaching it, as do our best clients as well, more like a marketing mentality. And I say this all the time, probably half the time on most of these interviews, is you're approaching, you would never say, I'm not going to start marketing for new clients until I need them. You would never say, I got a listing, turn off the marketing machine, everybody, we're done. Wait till this one doesn't work or closes, then we'll turn it back on, get that big stone rolling again. If you want to be an independent, great. If you want to have a small team, great. But if you want to build a legacy business, it's a business that you can go take vacation and it's running without you. It's growing, it's valuable in and of itself without you being there to kick that flywheel. And it doesn't circle around you as the center of the universe. Ultimately, eventually, that's what, I think a legacy, meaning you can sell it. You can leave it in the hands of somebody else. There's an old saying, you don't want to be the employee, but you don't want to be the boss, because the boss still has to come in every day. You want to be the owner who shows up on Friday, picks up the check, and goes back to the beach. Ultimately, in the end, when you're ready to kind of think about retiring, if you want to do that, you got to think about it like a business that's getting the best people. I completely agree with everything you're saying. But that's a big difference. And I don't think a lot of people will look over what you just said and don't pick up on it. So I really want to reinforce it. the beauty and the brilliance of what Jason's saying is, I'm thinking about this like an investment. If that person doesn't come here and they're kick-ass talent, they're going to go to my competition, or they're going to become my competition.
That's absolutely right. And again, I just want to stress it. It's not just an investment. It's the single greatest investment known to mankind.
Yeah.
Talent at the right price at the right time has a better return than anything else ever. And the truth of it is, and it took me, none of these ideas are mine. You know how that goes. I mean, we've learned most of these things. We have a duplicatable model for hype. But how many of the people that are out selling real estate have a listing presentation, and they have the booklet that they take, and they understand it well, and they understand making leads? And then I ask you, well, how many of you have a presentation for the people that you're trying to hire, or a system and model for the people you're trying to recruit? What does that presentation look like? Does it look as good as your listing presentation? Are you practicing it as much? And you get this look back like, no, that hasn't really occurred to me to do. And I understand that, but that's why you end up on the realtor roller coaster, which is looking for the next deal and ultimately looking for the next assistant. Because we all know real estate agents that go out and say, I'm looking to fill blank in my company, either call it an administrative person. They're at a point of pain, everything is a mess. Then they meet with 2 people, and they say, I found the perfect person. They're so great. It's amazing. They're 1 in 100. And I say, wow, and you only had to talk to 2. I say, but I have to actually talk to the 100. So I need leads for talent. And that's one of the things that gets back to millennials, which is really important, because the lead generation techniques to bring millennials into your corporation and into your company are completely different than the techniques that we were using even 3, 4, and 5 years ago. And then the value proposition and the structure of your company has to be completely different to motivate and keep them.
See, again, I think everything I hear you talking about, and this is why I wanted to interview you, and this isn't necessarily even just millennials. This is a guy that's an expert at bringing these people in at the volume you're bringing people in. You've become super proficient at this and a thought leader in it. Millennials or otherwise. There's really subtle things here that I keep wanting to stress. Don't skip over, and so I want to back up real quick. You talk about anybody can stretch like a rubber band. The biggest mistake that we see a lot of people doing, probably second biggest. The first is I'll hire right now when I need somebody, and I'll worry about it again when I fire or they quit. Hope is not a tactic. It never has been. You mentioned something that to me I think about all the time is like the job is fixed, and what makes for great talent is hard work and intelligence and a work ethic. And if they're damn good employees, they can adapt to anything. They can stretch themselves. So one thing that's very cool about what you're doing that is so statistically it works. I mean, we just know this, the performance of the people that do this is you're going out and realizing what makes that person great in their job is immovable. It's a natural talent that doesn't just change. You don't go, be more organized because I want you to now be the administrative assistant. Or you're not hiring an administrative assistant and saying, if this works out and you're the best admin I've ever had, we're going to make you a buyer's agent. And then maybe you can become a listing agent. They're totally different personalities.
Well, absolutely right. And so then you say to yourself, well, that this is easy, right? I just go out and I find personalities that are natural fits, and that's the game. And it isn't. It's a big piece of it, and it's amazingly important. The next thing that I'm looking for is trajectory. So if I'm meeting and we get to the point where you have the right behavior for something that I'm looking for, I'm staying in neutral during this entire process, right? I'm not falling in love on the first day. Trust me, it leads to ruin. And then I'm going right into trajectory. I need to understand what you've done in your life that's been extraordinary. Now, it's not going to have anything to do possibly with the real estate industry, but you did something extraordinary. Because if you haven't, it would be naive of me to think that the first time you become amazing is just because I'm in your life. Now, there's a chance, Jay, but the statistics of it is that you have to be showing trajectory in other parts. So when I talk to someone who says, well, I really don't know anything about the real estate business, and I say, great, well, you have an amazing personality for blank. Let me ask you this. What in your life do you know something about? And tell me about that experience. And you hear someone tell you about becoming captain of the football team or president of the student council or starting a garage band and then actually making flyers and selling tickets. I'm looking for something in their life that grabs on that they want it. I'm not going to be your first victory. And even if I am, it's not going to be a big enough victory to meet my goals because I'm looking for a Super Bowl every year. So I got to have behavior, and then I have to have trajectory. Once I have those things, Then I just need to understand your culture. That's the third and final step for me. And all of us as people and organizations have a culture. And this culture is going to be made up of our value system, our vocabulary, the way we look at the world, and the way that we make decisions. And I believe now more than ever, culture is amazingly important because we're so interconnected with the workplace. Like there used to be the old saying, take work home with you. And candidly, I don't know how, I think that's an impossibility now. I mean, the average American is spending 7 hours a day in front of some sort of screen, and now all these screens are interconnected. So work is everywhere that we are. So if I'm operating a business that has a culture that's worlds away from yours, and not maybe one of us isn't right and one of us is wrong, we're just amazingly different, then not only is your behavior going to be stretched, your trajectory is going to be influenced, and you might not want to go where I want to go.
Well, we talked both about adaptation from a behavioral standpoint. One of the things that we measure in the DISC index, the DISC plus as we call it, is not just the behavioral piece, but that values piece. And that starts to speak to culture. If you have an incongruity there, they're stretching in the exact same way. You're looking for a salesperson who, out of the 7 different dimensions that are measured in there, is more of a high economic drive. They're an ROI drive. That's the communication that's going to be motivating to them. That's what we're going to be communicating to them. That's how we're going to be trying to get them to take action and be passionate about. And if we're sending that message out and they're not, then it's on a different broadband frequency somewhere else. They're not listening. It's not coming in. Same with administrative assistants. Normally they're passionate about the culture that they want, is that they want to be fed by, is high regulatory or high altruistic. And if they're put in a job where the culture doesn't feed that, the job itself, the duties don't, they're having a stretch. And what happens is you see that, I think it's the biggest problem that we've seen out there is engagement is the word that we always use. It's the one we use on the dashboard. They're not engaged. They're trying to stretch to get excited about what the hell you're talking about, but they're not. They're like, well, I want to be, but I'm not really. I'm not that comfortable. I'm not that excited.
Well, and I think that speaks directly to what happens, the difference between recruiting and hiring. Because when I think of recruiting, you're thinking about who you're speaking to and their needs. When I think of hiring, it's to solve my need. Now, I think that there's a time for both, because I don't necessarily have a model for all the positions in my office. Truthfully, there are some positions that are far more intricate to my success than others, and there's different wealth determiners in the office. However, if you're truly trying to understand what somebody is all about, there was this old saying, right? Know your audience and then play to it. If you think that you can look at someone's resume or you can look at a DISC exam and know who somebody is, then I'd like you to take a step back and ask yourself, does that arrogance serve you well? And I mean that because I think that we need to understand people in a much bigger way than what one document says about them or one assessment. And I think you as a business owner need to have a duplicatable model, a set of conversations, a set of questions to understand who you're talking to. Because I'll tell you this, the cost of a bad hire is so massive in comparison. And, I'd rather, at times, you'd rather lose 2 good than make 1 bad, because you get into business with somebody. How long does it take before you know? And then how long does it take before you know and you're willing to take action? And then how long does it take before you know you're willing to take action and then you find a replacement? There's no surer way to set your business back 2 years than to hire the wrong person. Ill
will inside and outside customers, internal and external. They're pissing off people around them. They're making, it's always bad when I used to do a program called Tired of Hiring John Wayne on Friday and Woody Allen shows up on Monday. You never know. You just never know until they get in, to your point. And that can be weeks. And if you're really busy not monitoring closely because you expect them to step up, that can be months, if not even longer, in really, really bad cases.
The hiring process doesn't end the day they sign the deal. I think that you're in the hiring/recruiting process through their 90th day of employment.
Onboarding, as we call it. Absolutely.
The day we decide to get into a relationship after we've went through that process is really just the beginning of the second phase, which is now making the determination of whether all the systems and models we used were right. Because I'll tell you this, I'm not willing to stay in business with somebody past 90 days if they're not a good fit for me or the organization. I used to be, because I'm a natural tendency to really like people. I don't want to let anybody down. I laid awake last night worrying about you, Jay. I wanted to get this right. So when I bring someone into my world and I make commitments to them, I feel beholden. That's why I think when you bring them in, you need to have standards, and then you need to let those standards be the bad guys so that you never have to be, which I think is very important with millennials.
A tip that we've found works when you're trying to find that trajectory is to ask them to talk about something that they're passionate about. And if you're doing the right job benchmarking, if you're using the profiles and you're understanding your culture and you're looking at the resumes, if you're getting the right person in the job, what makes it right, a big piece of what makes it right, is it connects to their passion. They are passionate about it. That's what leads to engagement. So if we ask people, tell me a story about something that you are passionate about, that's been a pat phrase that works pretty well, because it's probably not real estate. It's probably not working at a tech company. It's probably not in sales, medical sales or something like that. But like you said, it might be anything, but watch how excited they get. Watch what that trajectory has been.
Well, and that goes both ways, because you have to be super careful, because odds are if you're having this interview with somebody, what you're passionate about is the business. Mm-hmm. So business owners have this amazing tendency to sit down and then sell the person that they're talking to on why they're the next logical step for them and why their business is great and all these different things. And that's not the job. I think when you're the business owner, you have to sit there and say to yourself, the opportunity being presented today is the greatest opportunity for this person. Maybe not necessarily for me. They have to convince me that they're right for the opportunity, not the other way around. Now, I'm not going to negativity. I am staying in neutral. And part of that is if you're not really sure who you are, or you're not the most self-aware, or you don't know your own behavioral tendencies, you got to get with somebody and figure out what they are to remind yourself to maybe either raise or lower who you are in these meetings so that you don't walk in and color everybody a certain way. I talk to people all the time that say, well, everyone we hired is terrible. And then I say, well, there's the only connective tissue here is you, but they're all bad. Like, we have to be self-aware as well.
Well, you didn't say it back when you talked about it, but linking that back, you got to be self-aware what your culture is. You said you got to find out if they fit the culture, which starts with you knowing your culture, which I'm assuming, never mind, I shouldn't assume. You tell me, how do you learn what your own culture is internally besides knowing what it's in your head?
Oh, I think that there's a great system and model. But by the way, if you don't think that your company has a culture, understand this, it absolutely does. You just haven't been purposeful about creating it. And the best thing that you can do to go find out what your culture is walk around your business and ask everybody, are we winning right now? And then regardless of their answer, ask them, how do they know? And then realize that not only do they not know the vision, they're not really sure on the mission, and some of them don't even know that there is a scoreboard.
Yeah.
Other companies, they'll be able to tell you, we're winning because this and this and this, and I know because this and this and this. That's a culture.
Purposeful communication.
Yeah, you're going to you either have a defined culture or you have the culture of confusion. You just have to figure out what it is.
Now that leads into a discussion. One of the bullets I had down is, we tend to hire ourselves. Subconsciously and psychologically, we tend to hire ourselves. People that have the same personality, behavioral tendencies, interests, motivations, values, they resonate because they like what I like. They like the way I like it. We talk the same. How's that bad? I mean, wouldn't that mean they're going to fit into the culture?
Well, I think it depends. I think the first thing, the reason that people tend to hire themselves is because they're not clear on exactly what they're hiring for at any given time. And one of the things—
job itself, the specific job, you mean?
Exactly right. Like, think back to the last hire you made. Did you have written out that job description and how it was going to be defined and what the standards were going to be in front of you during the entire time? I know that when I'm talking to people, I just tend to really like people. And so I find myself saying, they're great. I really like them. And I have to come back to that job description 7, 10, 15, 20 times over the course of the 3 or 4 days that I'm talking to someone, just to make sure that I'm getting the train back on the tracks. If I don't, you're right. I end up getting mission seep, and I hire people that are just like me, and then all we have are the greatest salespeople in the world. But it takes others to run a company. I think the other thing that you can do there is when you realize and you look around and you see that you're starting to hire people that look exactly like you do, you have to ask yourself, have you trained anybody else within the organization to be looking for talent as well? Because the truth is, if you've brought people into your company who are not bringing other amazing people into your company, maybe they're not so amazing.
Or they're not excited.
Or they haven't been asked to. Or there's a bunch of different reasons. But I'll tell you, a healthy company, when we think about the people that we're meeting, we can meet people a bunch of different ways. okay? But some of the best people that you're going to meet as referrals from others. You're also going to meet people, my favorite are the ones that say, I'm never leaving the firm that I am. I've never been happier and I'm never going anywhere. To me, that's like, please hire me. They're like raising their hand and they're begging to be taken away. Because if all you do is bring people that are miserable where they are into your life, where does your life end up?
Yeah, king of misery. Or queen. I think the best referrals have always been referrals from internal existing employees already.
Well, you love to recruit from within, but I'll tell you something. I'm really starting to see a change. When I look back at the last year, and it's not a commercial for WiseHire, but since I got into business with WiseHire, and I look at some of the best people in my firm that are showing the most upward trajectory are coming from them. And, I'm thinking to myself, well, how is that possible? And I'll tell you what I think, and you might say, Jason, you're way off base. Here's the real reason. Here's why I think. I think because you either have a leads problem, you have a conversion problem, or a leverage problem. And when you start to look at recruiting and hiring as an everyday activity, then you realize that you probably don't have enough leads. And then you look up and you realize that the way that people are starting to look for opportunities has changed. You see, it used to be when you looked for a new job, you pulled out your Rolodex and you started to dial on the round numbers and call people and say, I'm looking for a gig. Now, that's just not how it's happening.
And by internal referrals, I mean, too, I think internal referrals, hiring from within is always good if we can understand, maybe I brought somebody in and they weren't in the right position. If I can now, with this new pair of glasses, look at them and appreciate maybe there's something that they're a better fit for, that's great. Getting internal employees to refer external candidates to you is phenomenal. If you've got just a screaming, raving fan of the business, if you've done a good job hiring and they love it, it's a great fit for the culture, their talents, and everything about them resonates with it, you're leveraging the fact that they know this individual. So they'll know them way more than you will in 20 hours of interviewing them. And if they're not somebody that's nice, if they're lazy, if they're sloth, they're not going to tell them about the job. They're not going to refer them. They're only going to refer people. So if you create a culture that says, help us find more people that you would love to work with, who you think kick ass and you'd love to sit down with and think would be a great job and a fit, they're not going to bring bad referrals into you for the most part. I mean, everything happens, but usually they know that individual and it's a great, great lead.
That's exactly, the guys from Viral told me once, they said, if you were touching your database enough and the right way, you would never have to look outside of that database for talent again. And and it's unique to the real estate industry, because say I click off 400 or 500 deals a year and say I do that for 10 years. Do you know the amazing amount of intrinsic talent that is sitting in that database? And when they're getting videos from us and emails from us and all these things, we are in a relationship. See, that's the thing. I think that most real estate agents and most business owners, for that part, fail to think about the conversation is the relationship. That's true with almost anything. The way that we're communicating and the discussions that we have are the relationship. It isn't the activities that go with it. It isn't showing the houses. It isn't the movie that we saw if we went on a date. It's the conversation that happened before, after, and during. And that's what companies, I think, like yours and like Viral are really clear on. And it's helping business owners like us have more focused and powerful conversation, which leads to a better relationship.
Well, which speaks to, I love what you're saying, which speaks to the fact you don't just pick up on a Thursday and say, I got to hire somebody. I mean, you know, you're talking about a big, sometimes my people think it's scary, you know, but sorry, you know, sometimes it might be scary, but it's not just an easy push a button, put your money in, wait for the employee to drop down and open the door and grab them. You know, you can't do that.
Jay, I've said to you before, can I just pay more? I wish it was, but it isn't. And the truth of it is I think a lot of quality sometimes comes from quantity. And what I mean is that the more leads you have and the more people you engage with, the odds are of finding an amazing quality person within it. So if you truly believe that quality comes from quantity, all you have to do is look up and say, how much time am I spending generating people to talk to for anything? And then realize that it's probably not being done very purposefully within your organization.
Purposefully, I think, being probably the key word there. What are some ways that you're really marketing those jobs? You talk about diversity on a team. What's the diversity that you found works best when it comes to getting that out there? You know, your website playing a big role in that, job boards. we've already talked about, internal referrals in your database. What else besides that has been a great feed for you?
Look, I think all those things are great. Job boards are the #1 way right now that we're generating people to talk to. We're driving traffic to a recruiting website. We have our real estate website, which is designed to help people buy and sell real estate. And then we have another website that's specifically designed to talk to talent. And we spend a lot of time on it because we were talking to different hiring experts and headhunters. And I'm looking to hire younger people. That's just what I'm into at the moment. And they said, the way to do that isn't through a 35-page website with all different link pages and having them fill out this and that. It was to get on there and do a video and explain why all of your dreams have come true and what someone else's life look like and why there's any chance you can help get them there. And oh, by the way, do it in 1 minute and 30 seconds. And I'll tell you what, I think we came pretty darn close, and we get a ton of leads coming to us that way.
And this is nothing below the fold on that page, isn't it? This is a 1.5 page.
That's it, which I loved because it's a cheap thing to make. But here, the genius is in its simplicity. I think that people tend to make things very complex for 2 reasons. Number 1, because they fail to believe that there's a simple answer. And number 2, because they can hide behind the complexity as a reason to have not hit the goal. And when it comes to hiring and recruiting, this is very simple. We're going to tell our story in a motivating way. And as long as we tell our stories enough time every month, we're going to generate X number of face-to-face appointments. Once we're in the room with somebody, we shift to a consultative approach, and then we get to decide if we're the logical next step for them. If we are, and all those things come together, and then behavior and trajectory reach also, that's when this thing gets fun. It's only when you're sitting in a room talking to yourself that you realize this is a difficult one.
I talk to myself way too much throughout the day, so I'm talking. Yeah, okay, you guys are real.
By the way, I also think that job fairs right now, you go on college campuses, understand if you're in the real estate industry, major universities are coming after you in a big way. I mean, Harvard is working on a residential real estate program. I know that sounds crazy to people, but there's already colleges that are rolling them out. The Big Ten has them. You go down to Texas and they have them. And the reason why is because the numbers have gotten absolutely astronomical. 20 years ago when I started, I sat in the audience and I watched a guy on stage. The guy's name was, doesn't matter what his name was, but it was amazing. He had done $500,000 in commission. And it never occurred to me that anybody could do that. In the Century 21 office I was in, the top producer was a $4 million producer. We were on a 50-50 split. That's just what residential real estate was. And I came out of high school and went into it. And I thought, if I could make $100,000 or more money than I ever considered. And I said, if I can do that, life is going to be great. Now you look up and you realize that these mega teams are grossing $4, $5, $6 million in GCI every year. How long do you think it really is before the biggest universities in the world start making majors for it?
Yeah.
Because I got news for you. You make more money as a guy who owns a residential real estate team than a top lawyer who owns a law firm. It's starting to become close. And now that you consider that we can expand all over the world because technology is finally catching up with the industry, I feel confident that I can walk into any 4-year university and any graduate school and sit down and present the job offer of being a residential real estate agent as a much better opportunity than anything else they're thinking of doing. I'll take the Pepsi challenge against any doctor out there as well. This is the industry of the future. And you know how you know? You know because there was $52 billion that went into tech funding last year alone for real estate, search, and everything else. You know Zillow's got a $6 billion valuation. These guys on Wall Street that value companies understand where things are going. The opportunity now is bigger than ever before.
So how do you change, because I completely agree with everything you're saying, how do you incorporate the millennial attitude into that? Because the model has got to change. What you're offering, not just how. We talked a little bit about how you're offering it, where you're offering it. How do millennials view the offer differently? I mean, are they more likely to want that autonomy that goes with working remotely? Do they want to be able to work on their phone? Do they want, versus the typical, what's the average median age, I guess, of a 45, 46? They're like, where's my office? Come in and get my desk. Where's the support staff doing papers in a copier?
And because, by the way, because that's the median age, for those of you out there that are on the younger side, or for those that are on the older side, understand the opportunity now to sell legacy businesses that would otherwise have died off is greater than ever before. Remember, when a realtor used to get older, their business just evaporated. They write it, bucked them, and then they just stopped working. We're now in the first time where your business never has to stop. And if you're a young person who wants to go out and build through acquisition, there is, I don't know, 780,000 real estate agents out there whose businesses are ripe to be bought, but that's a whole nother conversation. In regards to this, I think we have to stop looking at millennials as aliens. And I think that there's a tendency to do that. And I think every generation has a tendency to look at the one that's coming after them as shiftless, lazy, and listens to bad music. Now, we can all agree they listen to bad music, these millennials, but that's not what we're talking about. They're not necessarily lazy and shifty and all of these different things. I don't believe that. What I believe is that if you are talking to people that have not worked in a corporate environment before, youth has this amazing ability to focus on the bigger picture. And age and restriction tends to start to limit the way that we're thinking. And when you ask millennials, what are the companies that you're most drawn to and for what reasons, there has to be something bigger than just selling houses happening. You have to have a mission. You have to have some vision. You have to be doing something. Now, I'm not saying that it all has to be altruistic, but it has to be bigger than just making a little bit of money and just selling houses. I think the work-life balance now is more important than it ever has been before because work is now a 24-hour-a-day event. And so when we talk about balance and counterbalance, I think we need to tell people, listen, when you're at work, you're going to go as hard as you possibly can. And then when you're not, you need to spend some time going as hard as you can over there also.
In the opposite direction, yeah.
Because I think that's where the magic happens. I think that people mistake the work-life balance, and what they do is they play for the middle, and they don't have amazing results in either place. What I'm saying is when you're going to be at work, put your head down and work like nothing else and ignore everything. But when you're going to be on vacation, don't look at work. That's a life worth living.
The trends we see of the businesses, especially teams, so far outperform the standard broker model or an individual, way more than if you've got 5 people on the team's 5 times more success. It's almost this order of magnitude. It's ridiculous. I want to make a statement and then get your thoughts on it. What we've hypothesized on our end is you've got, with millennials, that is, they don't look at it like actually my father's generation or our father's generation. I'm 49, so I'm in the middle there, but get out of college if you even went, go for 30 years, get that job, get in line, put your head behind the head of the queue in front of you, and just shut up, sit down, and be thankful you got a job. Millennials get so much grief because they're lazy and they're not willing to do the work ethic. I think it actually makes a strong business when you realize they're not there. They saw the disenfranchisement of the previous generations. They saw the guy that worked 29 years and 11 months and got laid off before the retirement, or 19 years and so they're just not buying into it. The millennials that we've seen, their attitude is, what's in it for me? And I don't have a problem with that. We don't have contracts at Weishire because it keeps us honest. If I didn't work kick ass for you last month, you shouldn't have to pay me next month. It keeps us honest, and it keeps us real, and it keeps us relevant. Millennials, what's your opinion on what millennials bring to a team or any business with regards to the work ethic that you have to put in to making sure that it's satisfying for them? Is it worth it? Is it, because I think the lazy bosses and lazy managers don't. I think you work harder to do it, but your business is healthier as a result.
Well, I just don't see it as an option because you live long enough and the only people you get to hire are millennials. You also have to remember the millennials today, right, are the seasoned employees of tomorrow. You either get into business with them now or you get into business with them then after somebody else has had an opportunity to screw them up.
What's the percentage by 2020?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers just are what the numbers are, right? I mean, I don't know them, but I just know simple logic, which says that the youth today are the maturity of the future. That's just, look, the only true rule is that one day follows the next. And the first of the month seems to come really fast.
Every month it gets faster and faster.
The first of the month comes every month. It's crazy. And they just keep going, right? So number one, I don't believe that this is a choice people get to make. Number two, I think if you listen to somebody like me and you don't walk away with systems and models, you just walk away with ideas, it probably wasn't worth your time. So this is the system and model I think that works best for millennials. I think that they work really well when there's a number set, there's a standard. If you don't have standards in your business, and I'm not talking about goals, I think those are very different things. I think goals are big numbers that we use to come up with actions. I think standards are what's going to happen every single day. And if there's transparency in those standards, and those standards are immovable objects, then the only things that we can change are the people around them. I think when we explain this to millennials, this is a language that they really understand, because they all want to live a big life. You ask anybody today, younger, tell me what a big life looks like. And they're going to tell you that the last thing they're going to mention is work, but they're going to tell you about time with their family. They're going to tell you about travel. They're going to tell you about having a little bit of money. But I'll tell you, they don't talk about necessarily needing to become billionaires. They just want to be comfortable and secure. They're going to define security as knowing what's happening on the first of every month and knowing that they can build a life around that number. And they're willing to take a smaller number to do it. What they're missing is that in order to have a big life, you first need to have a big business. See, the mission is to have a business worth owning and a life worth living, but the business part has to come first because the big business has to fund the big life.
Of course.
And well, you say of course, but I think that that is a lost idea.
Really?
With someone on the millennial side and we discuss that idea and then they say exactly what you just did, of course, the next question becomes very easy. Well, what are the activities that are going to have to happen on a daily basis to make sure that you get that big life? Which is another way of saying what has to happen on a daily business or a daily level to make sure that business happens.
Yeah.
Allow them to choose some of those standards. You see, it used to be we said in order to work here, you got to do A, B, and C. Now I like to sit with people and say, this is how much money you wanted to make. What do you think you're going to need to do each day to get there? Let's let them talk and have a stake in the numbers. Let's let people pick the numbers that they're going to hit, and then let's be unwavering about hitting them. I think that's a great way to manage the younger generation.
I love that. I think what people would probably say as you're saying that type of stuff right there is I could hear a lot of older hiring managers saying that, see, but he's catering to them because they're entitled. I wouldn't argue that they're entitled at all. I wouldn't say that. I would argue the opposite. I think they have belief. Other generations never thought that was a realistic expectation. They were being spoiled. These guys believe, this generation believes it is possible to have a big life. Maybe it's entitled. I don't think so. I think you as a boss, as a hiring manager, as a leader, can take that and channel that energy, channel that belief and that expectation that I can get that. Obviously, managing it properly, like you're talking about, through standards and objectives and goals and realization. And I heard a lot of mentoring actually going on in the stuff you've been talking about in the last 50 minutes, not just definitely no management, by the way, as a side note from a coaching standpoint. I didn't hear a whole lot of management because you manage things, a lot of leadership, and it probably transitioned over into more of a mentoring approach, really, which I think is probably really, really crucial. Again, not to skip over as well. You can't just, you said something about simplicity. Lazy and easy makes for complexity. Da Vinci said simplicity is the greatest form of sophistication. It's the hardest damn thing to do. Making it simple requires a lot of work.
And there's a great book called The One Thing that talks about just that, which is when people hide behind complexity, they allow themselves to not do the thing that has to get done, and that thing makes everything else less important. But I want to talk about the word entitled for a second, because I hear it all the time. Because I speak about this passionately, and then people say that very thing. You hit the nail on the head with that. And I kind of think I actually want people to feel entitled to live that big life. Let's just be real clear on the time we're living in. We literally are living in what I think to be the greatest time ever. We're like Greek gods. We carry the collective knowledge of mankind around in our phones. We can fly across the country in 5 hours and we don't even have to row. I mean, we're literally living in this amazing time. And you should feel that your unfair share of every marketplace is your right. All you have to do now is wake up tomorrow and match your actions and your calendar to those goals. You are entitled to live it. There's far too many people out there that think the people that work for them are there to help them accomplish their goals. That's the missing component. The truth is, if you surround yourself with people, understand their goals, and wake up every day to make sure that they hit them, you naturally hit yours. That's the difference.
I love what you're saying there, Jason. I haven't said a thing the whole time, but That's like 100% what we're doing with every single millennial that we bring in to viral marketing. And we have a whole process as well. I'm not going to get into it, but bottom line is that if you treat them the way that you want to be treated, not as their manager or that you're the one that's running the whole business, but you treat them as a peer and you treat them the way that you want them to hit their goals, you're going to reach every goal, if not ones that you wouldn't even imagine, because you're working with everyone on your team for them to reach their goals.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is super, super crucial with millennials because of what you guys have both been talking about. You can't be a lazy leader. You have to put the effort and the work into it. If you don't want to do this stuff, then get out. All right. Not to be harsh. I had conversations with people that come to us at Wise Hire and are like, well, why would I spend money like that? I literally say, go Craigslist. I did it this morning to somebody, if you're going to be lazy like this, if you don't want to put some money into finding the best talent, if you don't want to put the labor into it to make a system that they're going to thrive in, if you're not focused on them, don't bother. And what I think is cool about it is it's a contrary opinion to, unfortunately, the majority of hiring managers that we work with. The team leaders are better at it, but I just want to kind of capsulate that and put it into a big bubble and say, you guys, what you're listening to is Jason and talking about the attitude shifts away from what's in it for me and becomes at least equal to what's in it for you, the individual. And then with a lot of forethought and planning and strategic thinking, creating a situation where if I create that role where their objectives are met, I don't have to worry about mine because it will build up to my objectives, as opposed to top down, which is kind of the old industrial era mentality of here's what I want. Here's what the business needs. Here's the tasks and the jobs and the responsibilities. I'm going to find somebody, shove them and horseshoe them in there, get them in the role and say, look, just get it done because this is what I need. If you build a system where when they win, you win, and these sounds like these little colloquialisms and all this stupid rah-rah stuff. This isn't life coaching. It is real, serious, significant stuff that if you do it right and you take the time, you have to be looking at the people you're wanting to hire, millennials especially, because they won't take crap from anybody. I mean, that entitlement that you're talking about shows up. They're just like, bye, I'll walk. They'll have 7 jobs in the first 12 years and they don't think twice about it.
No.
They don't. They're like, if it's not what I need, I'm out.
And when you start studying businesses and you look at people that have had amazing success, what you really start to see is that the growth curve of every amazing business follows the growth curve of the amazing leaders within it. So if you're a company of 1, 2, or 3 people, how much time are you spending making sure that you're a better coach, a better mentor? Your personal growth will match your business growth dollar for dollar.
Here's one last one before we wrap it up. This one gets on my friggin' nerves more than anything, drives me crazy because it speaks to a mentality that I think is just bound to fail as a part of growing a team. What do you think when the guy says or lady says, well, I don't know, if I get people that are that talented, then they're just going to go out, start up their own team and become my competition. I don't want somebody that great.
No, I can appreciate that. I think it's coming from a place of scarcity, and it's kind of a softball question, right? Because you can slam this one out of the park. So I want to put a little bit of a different spin on it, if I can. Consider this for a second. Let's say you get the greatest person, and he comes up within, or she comes up within your organization, and she learns from you, and he learns from you, and they become an absolute Jedi, and then they go out and they open up next door, and they do great. Is it an amazing testament as to who you are and what your business is? And the answer, of course, is yes. Remember, when you bring people into the organization, I truly believe this, that the initial challenge is making sure that they hit their goals within it. Then the challenge shifts to the business leader, which is, how do I make my world big enough so that they never have to leave?
Okay, there you go.
And you think about companies. Like, let's just take Elon Musk, for example, right? I happen to think he owns an overvalued car company, but who am I? That said, do you think he's willing to let his world get so big that no matter how big your vision is, you can fit within it? That's why we see companies that have other companies that are the biggest in their disciplines born out of them. You see, the truth of it is I'm going to sell enough houses that I probably don't need to sell anymore to make my needs come true. I'm living a really big life right now. However, the people that are around me, we need to sell a ton more to make all their dreams come true. And I'm willing to step back and let my world get big enough so everybody else's gets as big as they want it to and no one has to leave. Now, that's not for everybody. It's really not, Jay. There's some people that are going to say, I just don't want my world to get that big. That sounds scary and that sounds great. And that's fine.
Great.
All I'm suggesting is figure out today, do you want to own a business or a practice? And how big are you willing to let your business get? Then go find some people to go take some territory and then teach them how to hold it.
Yeah, teach the man to fish. I think what kills me about that question is normally it's followed by an attitude of we're going to shoot for mediocrity. We're going to try to find somebody who's not a threat to me. Definitely a scarcity mindset, not an abundance one. And then they end up looking for people that they actually disqualify in the hiring. We actually see people that are looking for lower scores on the Y score sometimes because they're like, well, I love that score, but again, I don't want somebody who's going to take my business away from me.
Well, keep in mind, if you hire somebody who's mid-range and they have a bad day at work, what does a mid-ranges guy bad day look like? It's nothing you want to be around, Jay.
Crap. Yeah, I know. Well, what else? Any closing comments? This has all been fantastic. I mean, we got 3 minutes left. I want to make sure that we get anything you really wanted to kind of convey about millennials and hiring them. Anything we haven't discussed or covered so far? Scott, your questions you had as well. Any?
I was thinking about it last night, and I was thinking, here's the reality of it. The reality of it is maybe I'm not a millennial, and you're not a millennial. But you were young once. Now, we're going back a little, Jay, but you were young once, and I was young once, and I truly don't believe that the disconnect between today's youth is that much different than the youth was in our day. Everybody has a time in their life when they're a little more idealistic. Everyone has a time in their life they're rebelling against the sociology of the day. And there's a great song called "Don't Forget the Sunscreen," which is this guy wrote this song, and it has all of the advice that he's put together over his life. And he gave it at a graduation in Chicago, and then they made it into an EDM song. It's really cool. If you haven't listened to it, you got to listen to it.
I don't know.
And he gives you the best advice he has in life. And it hasn't changed. You see, the lessons that we learn are eternal. And we all are learning the same ones. And I'm looking at my son today, and I know he's going to screw up his credit. He's going to have a bad day, and he's going to go through all the same stuff I did. It's not that different. The day that the music gets too loud and you start thinking that the youth is different is the day that you got older. You need to sit down, critically think, and think back to what you were like when you were 25. I think we were all there at one point, Jay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It scares me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say too, the only difference is just the pace of social media and communication that that everyone's living in now compared to where we were 20 years ago. But otherwise, it's a matter of connecting with people and helping them reach their goals. I think that's so big.
Well, awesome. Thank you both again very much. And thanks to everybody for dialing in. Can't thank you enough, Jason. Anywhere you want to send people who've got some extra resources you'd like them to check out? Or
Yeah, I mean, look, anyone that's out there, we're easy to reach. HHCAIcareers.com. Check it out. We love to drive traffic there. And Jay, I'm so grateful. Thanks for letting me be here today.
See it? Always thinking like a marketer. He's got careers pages coming out, so he's looking for any great talent that's out there. There's a lot of it. You're going to get it. Thank you both very, very much. Scott, Jason, really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Tune in again next one.